On the blue and black side of Milan, a sleeping giant has risen again. Ambitious, distinctive, and anything but ordinary. If some believe that once-in-a-lifetime triumphs are nothing more than luck, then others must give credit to the team that has now reached the Champions League final for the second time in just 3 years. Because in this story, there are no superstar players bought with astronomical sums, nor is there a charismatic coach fluent in 5 languages. What we have is a team built on modest budgets, but one that believes in itself, a football brain that brings in its own expertise, and a manager who finds brilliance in what seems simple. Today, we take a closer look at the secret behind Inter's recent success. If you're into stories where football meets drama, subscribe and join the squad. In May of 2021, under the management of Antonio Conte, Inter finally lifted the Serie A trophy after an 11-year drought. After a dark era dominated by Juventus, it was finally time for Inter fans to celebrate. But as life often teaches us with cruel irony, good news and bad news tend to arrive together. Just 3 weeks after the title was sealed, the club officially announced a mutual parting with Conte. The core issue was the club's financial losses caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, which forced them to cut the budget. That meant star players would be sold, and Inter would continue with a more modest squad. Conte could not accept that. The fans were torn. Gratitude toward the man who had led them to glory after more than a decade, and frustration toward the management who had driven him away. Downsizing right after a championship, cutting the budget, it made no sense. The Chinese-owned Suning Group, which had taken over the club in 2016, was never fully embraced by the supporters, and now they had seemingly ruined their first major success. That summer, Suning Group, struggling with financial troubles, secured a high-interest loan of €275 million from the American investment firm Oaktree Capital Management, using Inter's shares as collateral. Over the next 3 years, the Chinese owners would fail to repay the debt, and Inter's ownership would inevitably shift to the American firm. Long story short, they cost the club both money and prestige. Yet arguably the smartest move they made during their time at the helm was appointing Giuseppe Marotta as CEO back in 2018. Those familiar with Italian football know the name well. Nicknamed Beppe, Marotta is widely regarded as the top figure in Italy's transfer market. From 2010 to 2018, he held the same role at Juventus, orchestrating the club's dominance in the country. Under his leadership, Juve assembled world-class squads at minimal cost. Marotta brought in players like Andrea Pirlo, Fernando Llorente, Kingsley Coman, Sami Khedira, and Dani Alves on free transfers. He also pulled off the iconic deal of signing Paul Pogba from Manchester United's academy for nothing in 2012, only to sell him back 4 years later for €105 million. During his tenure, Juventus won 7 Serie A titles and reached 2 Champions League finals. Just a few months after leaving Juventus in 2018, Beppe signed with Inter and became one of the architects behind their first league title in over a decade. It was also his decision to appoint Antonio Conte, his former colleague at Juve, as Inter's head coach. With transfers like Romelu Lukaku, Christian Eriksen, Nicolo Barella, Stefano Sensi, and Achraf Hakimi, Marotta quickly made his presence felt at the Milanese club. In just his second season, Inter clinched the title under Conte, and if Inter was now set to downsize by selling its stars, there was no better figure than Marotta to manage the transition. Perhaps the challenge appealed to his Italian footballing intellect, as he chose to stay on despite the reduced budget. As expected, the summer of 2021 saw many big moves. Inter sold Romelu Lukaku, who had scored 24 goals in Serie A and was arguably the most pivotal figure in their title run, to Chelsea for €113 million. Achraf Hakimi, a right-back who had contributed 7 goals and 10 assists in an exceptional campaign, joined PSG for €70 million. To replace Lukaku, Marotta brought in Edin Dzeko, while Hakimi's spot went to Denzel Dumfries, who had impressed with the Dutch national team at the European Championship. Christian Eriksen's sudden health issues forced an unexpected departure. For his replacement, Marotta turned to a long-time target, midfielder Hakan Çalhanoğlu, who had just ended his contract with arch-rivals Milan and signed with Inter on a lucrative free deal. Inter ended the transfer window with a net profit of around €160 million, but the most critical decision remained: who would be the next manager? Simone Inzaghi, as a player, had always lived in the shadow of his older brother Filippo. He spent nearly his entire playing career at Lazio and transitioned into coaching within their youth system shortly after retiring. For 6 years, he coached Lazio's under-17 and under-19 squads before being appointed interim head coach in April 2016. Following the dismissal of Stefano Pioli, Inzaghi delivered respectable results in the final 7 matches of the season, and by July, he signed a new contract that would mark the beginning of a 5-year stint with Lazio's senior team. During that period, he led the club to 1 Coppa Italia title and 2 Supercoppa Italiana wins. He consistently kept Lazio in the European race, even taking them to the Champions League once. Marotta wanted a manager hungry to prove himself in this new chapter. Much like Conte, Inzaghi favoured the 3-5-2 system during his time at Lazio. Marotta must have seen the spark he was looking for, because that summer he sat down with the young coach and signed him to a 2-year deal. For Inter, a new era filled with uncertainties and questions was about to begin. Although the squad had lost some of its power, Inzaghi inherited a championship-winning team, and there was no reason to overhaul the system. Yet, he would go on to create a very different version of Inter compared to Conte's side, one that shared the ball more with opponents and relied less on counterattacks. You can't just brush off the 3-5-2 formation. While it may seem outdated and is rarely used in today's game, Inzaghi's consistent use of it since his Lazio days is rooted in how he modernized and personalized the system with his own tactical twists. Indeed, Inzaghi's Lazio was always known for its attacking flair, regularly ranking among the league's top-scoring teams. Under his leadership, Ciro Immobile once scored 36 goals in a season and won the Golden Boot. In an Inzaghi team, it's sometimes hard to tell who's playing where. One moment, you might see Bastoni pushing up the left flank like a fullback, forcing DiMarco inward. The next, one of the strikers has dropped deep to link play, effectively becoming a 4th midfielder. Unlike the traditional, rigid stereotype of Italian managers, Inzaghi grants his players significant tactical freedom and flexibility. Of course, to make such a complex-looking system work, he needed intelligent, fully committed players. In his first season at Inter, the defensive trio was, on paper, much more formidable than it is today. Skriniar, De Vrij, and Bastoni. A rock-solid backline. The midfield trio, too, was composed of perfectly complementary pieces. Brozovic sat deep in the regista role, dictating tempo and passing flow. Barella brought relentless energy and was a true all-rounder, capable of showing up anywhere on the pitch at any moment. And then there was the often underappreciated Turkish midfielder. For centuries, humanity has survived thanks to intelligence and adaptability. Without discovering fire, we'd have frozen. Without building shelters, storms could have wiped us out. It wasn't physical strength or speed that ensured our survival, it was our ability to think. The same rule applies in football. Those who adapt endure, those who don't fade away. Throughout his career, Hakan had been deployed in various roles, under different systems. Though he wasn't an elite athlete, his football intelligence allowed him to excel in every task he was given. While he was used as an attacking midfielder at Milan, at Inter, he masterfully played as the link between the deeper and more advanced midfield roles in the trio. A front line with hard-working forwards like Martinez and Dzeko, both capable of dropping deep and linking play rather than simply chasing goals, gave Inzaghi another tactical edge. And having wing-backs like Dumfries and Perisic, both dynamic and effective on the flanks with serious scoring potential, was the cherry on top. In his first season, Simone once again built a fluid attacking team. Inter finished as the highest-scoring side in the league, but lost the title to arch-rivals Milan by just 2 points. That summer, Marotta pulled off another major Bosman move by signing Andre Onana, whose contract with Ajax had ended. Today's form might be misleading, but just a few years ago, the Cameroonian was one of Europe's most promising goalkeepers, praised both for his shot-stopping and his exceptional footwork. The fact that he was sold to Manchester United for €50 million just 1 year later only confirms that status. The other big move of the summer was the return of Romelu Lukaku, who had failed to find happiness at Chelsea and came back to Inter on loan. At Inzaghi's request, his former player Francesco Acerbi from Lazio was also brought in, along with Henrikh Mkhitaryan, whose contract with Roma had expired. adding depth to the rotation. While headline signings like Onana and Lukaku drew the attention, the acquisitions of these two veterans, aged 35 and 33, might have seemed unremarkable. But Inzaghi, like squeezing oil from a stone, swiftly integrated both into his starting 11. De Vrij's inconsistent form and Skriniar's reluctance to sign a new contract brought an early end to Inter's once mighty back three. Inzaghi opted instead for a more humble trio of Darmian, Acerbi, and Bastoni. On the left flank, academy product Federico Di Marco replaced the departed Perisic. Mkhitaryan became a key figure in midfield, while Lukaku added depth in the forward line. In the 2022-2023 season, there was no real title race in Serie A. Spalletti's Napoli wouldn't allow it. They ended a 33-year wait in epic fashion. But unlike in the Conte era, Inzaghi's Inter had now become a real force in the Champions League. Since lifting the trophy in 2010 under Jose Mourinho, they had only reached the quarter-finals once. But now, that long-forgotten excitement had returned. People often said Inter had been lucky with the draw that season, but what they tend to forget is that they first advanced from a group of death that included both Bayern Munich and Barcelona. Then came a string of knockouts, Porto in the round of 16, Benfica in the quarter-finals, and eternal rivals Milan in the semis. The fans were in dreamland. 18 years after the legendary final of 2005, the Ataturk Olympic Stadium in Istanbul once again hosted an Italian-English showdown. Truth be told, no one gave Inter much of a chance against Pep Guardiola's machine, but for a team supposedly without hope, they caused Manchester City all sorts of problems. Perhaps if Edin Dzeko had finished the match rather than starting it, the outcome might have been different. As it turned out, the substitute Lukaku missed some glaring chances, frustrating fans beyond belief, and perhaps ended his relationship with Inter for good. Once again, Istanbul proved lucky for the English. Inzaghi's team left the final defeated, but proud, and those who attributed Inter's success to nothing more than favourable draws would be forced to reconsider within the next 2 years. After the Champions League final, Marotta made a few but crucial changes to the squad. With Onana sold to United for a hefty profit, a reliable new goalkeeper was needed. That's when Marotta used his trademark move, seizing on an opportunity transfer. The previous season, Bayern Munich had signed Jan Sommer to cover for the long-term injury of Manuel Neuer, but with Neuer back, Sommer had become surplus to requirements. Marotta swooped in and secured the Swiss keeper for a minimal fee. Sommer has always been one of the most underrated goalkeepers around. Perhaps it's because, at 1.83 m, he's considered short for his position. But on his day, Jan Sommer can transform into one of the best in the world. He still holds the record for 19 saves in a single match. Long story short, Marotta had signed the best goalkeeper €7 million could buy. The need for strikers left behind by the departure of both Dzeko and Lukaku was met by yet another classic Bosman signing. Marcus Thuram, who now has a market value nearing €75 million, joined Inter on a free transfer. With additions like Aslani, Bisek, Fratesi and Arnautovic, Marotta also strengthened the squad depth, building a well-balanced team for his coach, all at a low cost. Still, there was one major question. How would they fill the gap left by Marcelo Brozovic? Any other manager might have seen the departure of such a vital figure and immediately called for a big money replacement. Conte, he definitely would have asked for one, and even gone to war with the board over it if needed. But Inzaghi had something else in mind. The season before, he had occasionally deployed that number 20, his all-around adaptable player, in Brozovic's deep midfield role, and the results had been promising. Now, Inzaghi made it official. Çalhanoğlu became his new, full-time number 6, and it marked the beginning of the best phase of his career. For Inzaghi, the time had come to claim his championship stripes. He renewed his contract in September 2023 and got to work. This time, they were the team that shut down any possibility of a title race. Inter once again finished as the top-scoring side in Serie A and won the league in dominant fashion, losing just twice in 38 matches. By season's end, they had a 19-point lead over their closest rivals, Milan. In the Champions League, they came up against a team that mirrored their own identity, one of those dreaded matchups nobody wants. Diego Simeone's Atletico Madrid. In a fiercely contested round of 16 tie, Inter held the upper hand until the 87th minute of the second leg, but couldn't hold on for 3 more minutes. Atletico leveled the aggregate and eventually knocked Inter out on penalties. Fortunately, they had the Scudetto as an incredible consolation prize. And beyond that, they'd have another shot at the Champions League the following year. This squad wasn't going to lose its drive, because as much as Inzaghi trusted his players, they believed in him just as strongly. The players often spoke about how much his humility inspired them. "He gave us freedom and reminded us that football is still a game," said Bastoni. "I've worked with Gasperini and Conte. They're always intense and present. But Inzaghi cares about your human side too. That helps you stay calm in crucial moments." Lautaro Martinez added, "His coaching skills are definitely underrated. The thing about Simone is, he still thinks like a player sometimes. That's why he understands us so well. He sees the game from our perspective. It's a huge advantage for me, especially because he used to be a striker. He knows how to send me onto the pitch with a clear mind and a smile on my face." Inzaghi may not possess Don Carlo's charisma or Antonio Conte's fiery ambition. Maybe his profile isn't global simply because he only speaks Italian. But what makes him special lies in his simplicity. He just wants to coach football and live out his childhood dream. In the 2024-2025 season, Inter, under Simone Inzaghi, was the team that left its mark on the newly formatted Champions League group stage. In the new system with 8 group matches, they conceded just 1 goal and suffered only a single defeat, away to Leverkusen. In the round of 16, they comfortably swept aside Feyenoord over 2 legs. But when the quarter-final draw matched them against Bayern Munich, most assumed Inter's journey had reached its end. The German powerhouse has always been a standard-bearer in terms of squad quality and remains one of the tournament's natural favourites. Yet the Italians shocked them with a late winner from Fratesi in Germany. A 2-2 draw at Giuseppe Meazza secured Inter's place among Europe's final 4. Their final hurdle was a Barcelona side led by Hansi Flick, known for its unorthodox style and the most prolific attack in Europe. Before the clash, Inzaghi stated, "We respect Barca, but we have no reason to fear them," and he meant it. Every second of the tie, Inter played like a team that truly believed they could beat their opponent. In 2 thrilling, goal-filled legs, they never gave in and earned their reward, a spot in the final. In one of the most unforgettable and miraculous showdowns in recent years, Francesco Acerbi, yes, Francesco Acerbi, forced extra time with a last-minute goal using his weaker foot. Then came the super sub Fratesi to seal the deal. A centre-back storming the opponent's box in the final minute of a fast break. Let's not talk about luck this time. "Bayern Munich and Barcelona were probably 2 of the best teams in Europe this season," said Inzaghi. "I'm proud to be the coach of this team. The boys gave everything. We should savour every single moment of this." Simone Inzaghi is now nearing the end of his 4th year at Inter, and if luck is truly on his side, he could finish the season with both the Serie A and Champions League titles. And he's done it entirely on his own terms, at a club that's been forced to sell key players almost every season just to stay financially afloat. He succeeded with a system many considered outdated and a humble squad built without burning through hundreds of millions of euros. Simone is no longer just the less talented younger brother of Super Pippo. He's the man who brought Inter back to the top of Europe. If you want more stories like this, hit that subscribe button. Let's celebrate football together.